Hi, it's me JD and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be making some masculine, monotone, modern cards. How many M words can I fit in this intro? You'll be over the moon for these marvelous cards. I must say, they're magnificent. Moving right along, be sure to sit back, subscribe, and nope, I lost it. I'm going to start off with some ink blending. These are Altenew mini ink cubes. And as I start, I remembered, whoops, wait, I need to do some masking first. So I die cut out a circle and out of some masking paper, and that will be my mask for my moon that I will be stamping later. I'm using Altenew inks because their inks come in sets of 3 or 4 and they're coordinating colors. So if you're doing stamp layering or monotone cards like I am, where it's the same color but different shades, then these inks are perfect. They take all of the guesswork out of it. I'm also trying out this media mat from Waffle Flower. I've heard it's great for ink blending, so I wanted to see how I like it and how it would work on my craft desk. For these inks, I still like to just blot off excess ink before I bring it to paper. It's a habit. I don't know if it really does anything, but I've noticed that when I do that, decreases the chances of harsh lines. I'll be doing 3 cards today, and since I'm doing 3 cards, I like to work in batches, so I'll be doing all of the ink blending at once, and then all of the other subsequent steps in batches later. For this first layer of ink blending, I'm going mostly all over the top 3/4 of the card front in the lightest shade of each mini ink cube set. I'll set these all aside while I move on to some die cutting. I have this mountain set where I want to create different mountain ranges and then ink blend onto those. But first, I'm going to put some painter's tape on these and put them onto my electronic die cutting sandwich here. I'm using my Gemini Junior to die cut, and then I'll run this through my die cutting machine. I'll come out with different shaped mountain ranges. I'm cutting all of these pieces out of some Bristol Smooth cardstock. I knew that I was going to be doing a lot of ink blending and I wanted the smoothest possible surface for all of these. Now it's time to start ink blending the mountain ranges, and for the first mountain range, this one will be in the background, so it'll be like the farthest away from you if you're looking at this card front from the front. That will be ink blended in the second lightest color of the ink set. I didn't go all the way down the die cut because I knew that there's going to be another mountain range covering the front side of that piece. And this media mat definitely does wipe easily. So I'm going on to the other background mountain ranges for the other cards. And this one is a nice shade of green. This ink does blend better than I thought. For ink blending, I usually go to Distress inks or Distress oxide inks. But I've used Altenew inks to ink blend before, and I knew, their properties is that they usually come out a little bit lighter, and you probably have to, just a tad more elbow grease into it, but you still get a nicely blended project. I've also used Altenew inks for stamping plenty of times, and they stamp beautifully as well, a nice crisp image. Once those first few pieces are done, I'll also do a second mountain range, and this one will go in the foreground, so towards the front of the card, in the third lightest shade of the ink set. I'm also really digging how easy it is to clean up all this ink off this media mat. The only suggestion I would make, or the only wish I would make, is that it would be a tad bit bigger, like maybe like an 8x8, because, well, this is a personal choice, but for me, I like to start ink blending off my project, which is usually an A2 sized card front, so that's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And there's just not enough space for me if I have a whole entire card front in there to start off on the side and then bring it in. I just wish there was a little bit more space on the left and right sides. But other than that, pretty good media mat. Now on to the peel reveal, and this is always just so satisfying. I have a nice crisp white circle, which I die cut out of a particular size because I wanted it to fit this moon stamp that's also from Altenew. I think it's one of the oldest sets that I have from Altenew. It must be at least a couple of years old. I'm also stamping these in the same color as the background. So you can definitely see the difference between how the Altenew ink stamp and how they blend on cardstock. This moon stamp is also a layering set. So yeah, you can have 3 different layers, but I thought just having the one layer would work for my projects just fine. And as you saw, I just tested that stamp with a scrap piece of paper just to make sure there wasn't any ink left over before I stamp a different color on it. And yes, I realize I'm using nonsensical color schemes for my scenes, but I just thought these colors were so pretty, but they were like sort of masculine, like they can go for either, you know, girls or boys, men and women, so that's why I decided to use them. I think this is just a great non-gender specific card to send someone just to let them know that you're thinking about them. Okay, so now to attach all these mountain ranges, like I said, the second lightest shade is going to go in the back, while the third lightest shade is going to go in the front. And you can see how well these colors coordinate together. I mean, Altenew really just did. They took all the guesswork out of it. I didn't have to go scrounging around for inks, and you know, I didn't have to think, oh, this color will go with this color. Nope, I just took out one set of inks, and that was it. So now I'll repeat those steps for the other 2 cards. I'm also going to line these cards up so I can get the mountain ranges placed in the exact same spot for each card, because I don't know, I just want to be a little OCD or something. But it also kind of looked like a really cool large mountain range when all 3 of these were placed side by side. So this would make for a great like Z-fold card, or one of those tri-fold cards that just the scene extends across 3 card fronts. That'd be really cool. Now I know what you're thinking, like, where is she gonna put the sentiment? Well, that's why I die cut out my little mountain forest here. This die is from the same mountain die set. And I'm going to just put some tape runner on the back and glue these to the front. And along the bottom is where my sentiment will go. I'll just trim off all of this excess cardstock, including this one card front where there's a little bit hanging off the side. So I was like, well, that doesn't look cute. So I'll just trim that off and no one will be able to tell. All right, so all my cards are here. Now this stamp set doesn't have like one line of sentiment. It's basically like create your own. So I'm gonna have to play around a little to make sure all my words are of equal spacing and they're all lined up straight. And I do this like off camera. It like took me 5 minutes, but it was worth it because I had my own custom sentiment. I tested it on some scrap paper before I decided to commit, because you know how hard it is sometimes to get all those words lined up straight when they're like small little word stamps, and then you bump one and it messes up another. Yeah. So after all that, I'm going to get out my MISTI, pick up those stamps. You saw I dusted my card front with some anti-static powder because I'll be doing some heat embossing in white embossing powder. I must not have dusted that well because I'm still getting some stray powder in spots where it's not supposed to be, but that's okay. I have a small little paintbrush I keep next to my other craft supplies where I use it just for dusting off all that extra powder. And now I'll do the same with the rest. I do my heat embossing in batches as well. So I ink in Versamark ink, then I pour the powder over it, because if you just leave it in Versamark ink, it might dry up and it might not be as sticky anymore, so it won't hold that powder. So I make sure to ink, stamp, and powder all at once before moving on to the next step. Once I get the embossing powder out, then I turn on my heat tool. And the heat tool is loud and noisy, and I hate it. It makes me anxious to hurry along these steps, but you know, it is what it is. Hoping for the day they make a nice quiet heat tool. Once the loud and noisy heat tool is nice and hot, then I'll use it to melt all of this powder down. I barely left enough room for my sentiment, but I didn't want that mountain forest piece to like cover up all that ink blending I did. So that's why I literally left like a sliver of space to put it on there. Now I'll use some more tape runner to apply these all to my A2 size note cards. I've been digging the side folding note cards. I don't know, it's a preference. Someone asked me if I prefer top folding or side folding. I think I do the side folding because that's, you know, traditionally how greeting cards are read. But top folding is great too. I don't discriminate. That's probably easier way to like take pictures of your photos if they're top folding. Whatever floats your boats. Anyway, that does for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.